لا.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
After reciting the Tashahud, Ta'awuz and Surah Al-Fatiha, Hazrat Khalifa Masih V, Aidha Talab Nasl Aziz stated,
Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu के वाक़यात का जिक्र चल रहा है। हज़रत उमर के ज़माने में एक जंग
Incidents in the
हुई।
life of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu were being narrated. A battle took place during the era of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, which is known as the Battle of Ray.
की सरज़मीन है। ये
Ray is a well-known mountainous area.
से
It is located at a distance of 480 miles from Nishapur
51 मील के फासले।
and 51 miles from Qazwin.
रे के रहने वाले
The inhabitants of Ray are called Razi.
मुफस्सिर कुरान हज़रत मामा
The well-known commentator of the Holy Quran, Hazrat Imam Fakhruddin Razi, was from Ray.
रे का हाकिम
Siyabakhsh bin Mahran bin Bahram Shubin
शुबीन
was the ruler of Ray.
इसने दम्बावंद तबरिस्तान
He called the people of Damavand, Dabaristan and Jurjan for help and told them that the Muslims have attacked Ray.
रे पर हमलावर हैं।
He ordered for them to gather in order to confront them. Otherwise, they will not be able to fend them off individually. Subsequently, the supporting armies from these areas gathered in Ray as well.
अभी रे के रास्ते में थे।
The Muslims were still en route to Ray when a Persian chief,
जो थे रे के रास्ते में ही थे।
Abdul Farkhan Zainabi,
अबुल फरखान
approached the Muslims
ज़ैनबी
in order to make peace.
सालिहाना तौर पर मुसलमानों से आ मिला।
The reason for this
वजह गालबन ये थी
was most probably that he had fallen out with the ruler of Ray.
लगती थी। लश्कर जब रे पहुंचा,
When the army reached the city,
उनकी तादाद और
there was a
दुश्मनी
significant
की तादाद
disparity
और
between the
रास्ता
size of the Muslim army and that of the opposing army.
ज़ैनबी
Having observed this, Zainabi said to Nu'aym,
मेरे साथ कुछ शाहसवार भेजिए।
"Send some of your cavalry with me. I will enter the city through a secret passage.
बाहर से हमला
You should then launch an attack from the outside and the city will be conquered."
चुनांचे रात के
Hence, during the night, Nu'aym bin Muqarrin sent some of his cavalry along with Zainabi under the command of his nephew, Munzir bin Amr.
के हमरा भेज दिया।
He himself took his army and launched an attack on the city.
पर हमलावर हुए।
The battle commenced, and the enemy firmly stood its ground and fended off the attack.
मगर जब अपनी पुष्ट से
However,
इन मुसलमानों के नारों
when
की
they
आवाज़
heard
सुनी,
the slogans of the Muslims who had set off with Zainabi from behind them, they lost all hope, and the Muslims conquered the city.
शहर पर मुसलमानों का कब्जा हो गया।
The inhabitants of the city were given a written oath of protection. And the words of this agreement were as follows:
कि वो इस तरह है, उसके अल्फाज।
In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful.
ये वो तहरीर है जो नुआइम बिन मुकर्रम
This is the settlement which Nu'aym bin Muqarrin gives to Zainabi.
वो बाशिंदगान रहे
He will protect the inhabitants of Ray and the people in its surroundings
जो उनके साथ हैं।
on the condition that every adult pays the jizya according to their capacity
सालाना हस्ब ताकत जिज़्या
and
दे
acts in goodness.
और ये कि वो खैर खाई करे, रास्ता बताएं।
They should show them the way and not be dishonest and deceitful.
और एक दिन रात
They should be hospitable to the Muslims for one day, and they should honor them. Whoever abuses a Muslim verbally will be punished, and whoever attacks a Muslim will be punished by death. In any case, this was a settlement and was attested.
फिर फतह कुमैस है।
Then there is the conquest of Qumis and Jurjan, which took place in 22 Hijri.
रे की फतह की खुशखबरी
When the messenger informed Hazrat Umar about the conquest of Ray, Hazrat Umar wrote to Nu'aym bin Muqarrin that he should send his brother Suwaid bin Muqarrin in order to capture Qumis.
भेज दो।
This city is located between Ray and Nishapur, near the end of the mountain range of Tabaristan.
कुमैस वालों ने कहा ने कोई
The people of Qumis did not oppose them, and Suwaid wrote them an oath of protection and reconciliation.
इसके साथ ही जुर्जान तबरिस्तान
Jurjan was situated close by. It was a large city between Tabaristan and Khorasan.
और तबरिस्तान के लोग
The people of Tabaristan also sent their people to Suwaid, and they too accepted the treaty on the condition of paying the jizya.
कर ली।
Subsequently, Suwaid wrote an oath of protection for the people of the entire area.
तहरीर लिख कर दे दी।
There was no discussion about religion.
की बात नहीं हुई।
Those who wanted a settlement were granted protection.
सुलह कर ली गई।
Then there is the conquest of Azerbaijan, which also took place in 22 Hijri.
हिजरी की है।
As has previously been mentioned, Hazrat Umar gave the flag for the campaign towards Azerbaijan to Utbah bin Furqad and Bukair bin Abdullah, and he instructed them to launch their individual attacks from different routes. Bukair bin Abdullah advanced with his army, and when he reached near Jurmizan, Rustam's brother, Isfandiyar bin Farrukhzad, who had fled after being defeated in the Battle of Wajruz, came forward in order to confront the army. This was Bukair's first attack on Azerbaijan. A battle ensued, the enemy was defeated, and Isfandiyar was captured. Isfandiyar asked Bukair, the commander of the Muslims, whether he prefers a peace settlement or war. Bukair replied, I prefer a peace settlement. He then said, you should keep me with you as your captive. They will not accept any peace settlement until I am made their representative. They will continue to fight until they are scattered in the surrounding mountains or besieged in their fortresses. Hence, Bukair kept Isfandiyar with him, and they gradually seized more and more of the area. Utbah bin Farqad attacked from another side. Bahram, the brother of Isfandiyar's, confronted him on the way, but fled after suffering defeat in battle. When Isfandiyar heard of this, he said, the flame of battle has now been extinguished, and the time for entering a peace treaty has approached. Hence he entered into a settlement, and the people of Azerbaijan supported him. An oath of reconciliation was written, and the words of his oath were as follows. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. This is the settlement which Utbah bin Farqad, a servant of the leader of the faithful Umar bin Khattab, gives to the inhabitants of Azerbaijan. The settlement applies to all people living in the open plains, mountainous region, and neighboring areas of Azerbaijan, and to the adherents of all religions. All of them are granted protection of their lives, their wealth, their religion, and their religious laws, on the condition that they pay the jizya according to their means. i.e., they ought to pay the jizya according to their means. However, the jizya will not be taken from a child, a woman, someone who is permanently ill and does not have any wealth, nor a hermit who does not possess any wealth. This applies to the natives of this land, as well as to those who come from elsewhere and settle here, i.e., for future inhabitants. They are responsible for the hospitality of the Muslim army for one day and to show them the way. If anyone is asked to render military duties, he will be exempt from paying the jizya. These are the conditions for anyone living here, and whoever wishes to leave will remain under protection until they reach their place of safety. This settlement has been penned by Jundub, and Bukair bin Abdullah and Simak bin Kharsha are witnesses to it. Regarding the settlements with Armenia, it is stated that after the victory of Azerbaijan, Bukair bin Abdullah advanced towards Armenia in order to assist them. Hazrat Umar sent an army under the command of Suraka bin Malik bin Amr. And in this expedition, Suraka bin Malik was also to serve as the overall commander-in-chief, while the vanguard was to be led by Abdurrahman bin Rabi'a. Huzaifa bin Asid Ghafari was assigned as the commander of one flank of the army, and was told that when this army meets up with the army heading towards Armenia under the command of Bukair bin Abdullah, the second wing of the overall army should be given to Bukair bin Abdullah. The army began its journey, and his vanguard commander, Abdurrahman bin Rabi'a, moved with such speed that they advanced ahead of Bukair bin Abdullah's army and reached the outskirts of a place called Bab, where the ruler of Armenia, Shahrabaraz, resided. Shahrabaraz was Iranian. He sought protection from Abdurrahman in a letter and came to see him. He was Iranian and hated the Armenians. He negotiated with Abdul Rahman, proposing that the jizya not be levied upon him, but instead he would provide military assistance wherever needed. This is a different kind of settlement. He agreed himself to the peace treaty, but said not to take the jizya. Instead, he would provide them military support. Suraka accepted the offer, and Armenia was conquered without any fighting. When this incident of reconciliation was reported to Hazrat Umar, not only did he approve of it, but expressed great approval and joy. Suraka presented them with the following settlement. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Ever Merciful. This is the settlement which Suraka bin Amr, the governor representing Umar bin Khattab, leader of the faithful, has made over to Shahrbaz, Armenia, and the inhabitants of Armenia. The leader of the faithful hereby grants them protection of their lives, wealth, and religion, guaranteeing them that none of these things shall be harmed. In the event of an attack, they will serve in the army, and whenever the commander deems fit, they will help in every important task. The jizya will not be levied upon them, rather their military services will be accepted in its place. However, those who refuse to provide military support will be required to pay the jizya, just like the inhabitants of Azerbaijan. They should guide them along their journey. They have to provide an entire day's hospitality. But if military help is rendered, then jizya will not be taken from them. If military assistance is not taken, then the jizya will be levied upon them. The witnesses for this agreement were Abdul Rahman bin Rabia, Salman bin Rabia, and Bukair bin Abdullah. It was written down by Mirza bin Muqarrin, who was also a witness. After this, Suraka began to send armies to the mountains surrounding Armenia. Hence, Bukair bin Abdullah, Habib bin Maslama, Hudayfa bin Asid, and Salman bin Rabia led these forces into the mountains. Bukair bin Abdullah was sent to Mukan, Habib was sent to Tiflis, and Hudayfa bin Asid was sent to meet the inhabitants residing in the mountains of Lan. Of these forces sent by Suraka, Bukair bin Abdullah, who was sent to Mukan, saw the greatest victory. He issued a written proclamation of peace to the inhabitants of Mukan, which was as follows. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Ever Merciful. This is the settlement issued to the people of Mukan in the mountains of Qabah by Bukair bin Abdullah. They are hereby extended protection concerning their persons, wealth, their religion, and religious law, on the condition that they pay the jizya of 1 dinar or its equivalent value to be paid by every adult. Among all the peace settlements which were formed in these new places, the freedom to profess and practice religion was safeguarded. As for those who allege that Islam was forced upon the masses by the sword, no one from among these people were forcefully converted to Islam, and that they will act in goodwill, help the Muslims, and incur the expenses of hosting the army for one night. They will enjoy this protection for as long as they are loyal to this agreement and support it, and our responsibility will be to remain loyal to them. Wallahul Musta'an. And Allah alone is the helper. If there is any breach in this agreement or the slightest deception from their side, then they will lose their protection. Rather, anyone witnessing this will hand over the perpetrators of any deception to the Islamic government. Otherwise, those people will be considered as their accomplices. This settlement was also signed and attested by 4 or 5 individuals. Then there is the conquest of Khorasan, which took place in 22 Hijri. The details of this are as follows. After the Battle of Jalula, the king of Iran, Yazdegerd, arrived in Ray. The ruler of Ray, Aban Jazwiya, attacked Yazdegerd, took his signatory ring, prepared official documents as he pleased, and then returned the ring back to him. Then Aban came to Hazrat Saad and returned all the agreements that had been decided in writing, i.e. all those documents that had been prepared previously were returned. Yazdegerd then left Ray for Asfan. Aban did not approve of Yazdegerd going there either, and so Yazdegerd had to migrate again to Kerman. He had with him the sacred fire. Because they were fire worshippers, they would carry the sacred fire with them everywhere they went, and he had this with him also. Finally, he decided to go to Khorasan and stayed in Marv. He lit the sacred fire there, and arranged for the temple to be constructed for this purpose along with a garden, which was situated at a distance of 2 farsakh, i.e. 6 miles from Marv. Here he began living in some peace and stability, while writing letters of correspondence to non-Arabs living in the unoccupied regions. He began to have such influence over these people that they became loyal to him. Furthermore, he also incited the Persians living in Muslim-occupied lands as well as Hormuzan. Owing to this, they broke their treaties with the Muslims and revolted. The people of Jibal and Ferozan also followed suit and cut asunder their contractual loyalties with the Muslims and also revolted. Jibal is the name of a well-known region in Iraq, which covers a collection of cities ranging from Isfahan to Zanjan, Qazwin, Hamadan and Ray, etc. Ferozan is the name of a settlement in Isfahan. Anyhow, under these circumstances, Hazrat Umar Farooq gave permission to the Muslims to advance and infiltrate into Iranian lands. Hence, the people of Kufa and Basra made their way, and upon reaching there, launched powerful attacks against them. Ahnaf bin Qais marched towards Farakhsan. On the way, they conquered Meherjan, Kazakh. This is a vast region between Hulwan and Hamadan mountain range, covering several towns and settlements. After this, when they went a little further towards Isfahan, they found that the people of Kufa had surrounded Jay. Jay was also the name of an ancient city in the surrounding regions of Isfahan, which today is almost completely barren. Among the non-Arabs, it's known as Absharistan. Hence, they entered Khurasan from Tabistan and conquered Herat through powerful attacks. Tabistan is a surrounding state situated between Nishapur and Isfahan. In Fars, it was referred to in short form as Tabas. Herat is a great and famous city among the renowned cities of Khurasan. They appointed Sohar bin Fulan Abdi as the deputy and marched forward again towards Marv Shah Jahan. Among all the cities and provinces of Khurasan, Marv Shah Jahan is the most famous. It is located 210 miles from Nishapur. No skirmishes broke out during the journey. This is why Mutarrif bin Abdullah bin Shakhir was sent towards Nishapur, and Harith bin Hassan was sent towards Sarkhas. Sarkhas is also an ancient and large city in the outskirts of Khurasan, located between Nishapur and Marv. Nonetheless, when Ahnaf bin Qais approached Marv Shah Jahan, Yazdjard relocated to Marv Aruz. Marv Aruz is named because Marv refers to the white rock wherein a fire is lit. The stone is neither black nor red, and Ruz is Persian for river. Thus, it means the stone of a river. Marv Aruz is located at a 5-day journey from Marv Shah Jahan near a vast river. Ahnaf bin Qais stopped in Marv Shah Jahan. After arriving in Marv Aruz, owing to his fear, Yazdjard sent envoys to various rulers for support. He sought assistance from Khaqan. He wrote to the leader of Sogdia to send military support. Sogdia is that area which covers Samarkand, Bukhara, etc. He also sent for help from the Chinese emperor. Ahnaf bin Qais left Haritha bin Nu'man Ba'li as a deputy in Marv Shah Jahan. In the meantime, the armies from Kufa arrived, headed by 4 commanders, and reached Ahnaf bin Qais. When all the armies gathered in Marv Shah Jahan, Ahnaf bin Qais ordered the armies to march towards Marv al-Ruz. When Yazdjard learnt of this, he fled towards Balkh. Balkh was a beautiful city in Khurasan, situated near the Oxus River. Subsequently, Ahnaf bin Qais stayed in Marv Aruz. When the armies of Kufa set off for Balkh, Ahnaf bin Qais also departed behind them. Eventually, the armies of Kufa and Yazdijad met at Balkh and a battle ensued. The outcome of the battle was that through Allah the Almighty's support, Yazdijad was defeated, as a result of which he ran towards the river with the Iranians, and having crossed the river, he fled. At this point, Ahnaf bin Qais joined the armies of Kufa. Allah the Almighty granted them victory in Balkh. Balkh is counted among the victories of the people of Kufa. After this, the residents of Khurasan who had fled or took refuge in forts, as well as those living between Nishapur and Tukharistan, all came and agreed upon a settlement. Tukharistan was a region which spanned across many cities and bordered Khurasan. The biggest city was Talikan. After this, Ahnaf bin Qais returned to Marv Ruz and settled there. He appointed Rabi bin Amir, a nobleman from among the Arabs, as his deputy in Tukharistan. Ahnaf bin Qais sent news of the victory of Khurasan to Hazrat Umar. Upon hearing news of the victory in Khurasan, Hazrat Umar said, "I did not wish to send an army against them. Instead, I wished if there were a river of fire between us and them." It is usually alleged that Muslims wish to invade lands and conquer countries. Hazrat Umar did not wish to send an army. Upon hearing the words of Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Ali said, "O leader of the faithful, why do you say these words?" Upon this, Hazrat Umar replied, "The reason is that the people of these areas will revolt 3 times by breaking the treaties. On the 3rd time, they will need to be subdued." It is mentioned in a different narration from Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib that when news of the victory in Khurasan reached Hazrat Umar, he said, "I wished that there was a river of fire between us and them." Upon hearing this, Hazrat Ali said to Hazrat Umar, "O leader of the faithful, this is a joyous occasion. What is worrying you?" i.e. that they have been granted victory, but he wished that there had been a barrier between them. Hazrat Umar responded, "Indeed, it is an occasion to rejoice, but I am worried that the people there will break the covenant 3 times. According to another narration, when Hazrat Umar learnt that Ahnaf bin Qais had captured both cities of Marv and also Balkh, he stated, "Ahnaf bin Qais is the leader of the Orientals." He then sent a letter to Ahnaf bin Qais stating, "Do not cross the river whilst you are residing in the area before the river. Always remain firm upon the principles and morals you brought with you to Khurasan. In this manner, you will gain victory and support at each step. However, do not cross the river, as you will suffer greatly." Initially, when Yazdijad called upon the neighboring countries for help, he did not receive any substantial support. However, now Yazdijad had fled from his own kingdom and went to them in order to gather enough support to recapture his kingdom. Khaqan, the Turk leader, supported him and arrived in Balkh with his army. Balkh was a beautiful city in Khurasan near the Oxus River, where the Muslims were present with a force of 20,000. Ahnaf killed 3 Turk horsemen. Thinking this to be a bad omen, Khaqan turned back and left. After listening to the conditions of the Muslims from Yazdijad's envoy, the Chinese emperor wrote back to him saying, "After listening to the qualities of the Muslims as mentioned by your emissary, I believe that if the Muslims came up against a mountain, they would reduce it to dust. If I send assistance to you, so long as they remain established upon the principles mentioned by your emissary, i.e. the qualities of the Muslims mentioned by the emissary, they will take my throne away from me too, and I will have no power to stop them. Therefore, you ought to form a treaty with them." Subsequently, Yazdijad moved from city to city. He was killed in the Khilafat of Hazrat Usman. Ahnaf bin Qais sent news about the victory and also the spoils of war to Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Umar gathered the Muslims and delivered an address. Upon the instructions of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, the letter containing the details about the victory was read out. Hazrat Umar then said, "Verily Allah the Almighty reminds you about his messenger and also the guidance he was sent with. Allah the Almighty has promised to grant reward swiftly to those who follow the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and to be granted good in this life as well as in the hereafter. Hazrat Umar then recited the following verse of the Holy Quran. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. He it is who sent his messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, that he may make it prevail over every other religion, even though the idolaters may dislike it. Hazrat Umar then stated, all praise belongs to Allah, who has fulfilled his promise by assisting his army. Hearken, Allah the Almighty has destroyed the Magian Empire and broken their strength and unity. Now they do not even own an inch of land in their former occupied territory and will not be able to harm the Muslims anymore. Hearken, Allah has granted you their lands, their homes and their wealth and made you heirs of their future generations so that they can see how you conduct yourselves. Remember this well, many nations in the past also had military strength like you. Hazrat Umar is advising the Muslims. Remember this well, many nations in the past also had military strength like you. And in the past, many civilized nations occupied far-off lands. Allah the Almighty is soon to establish His law and will fulfill His promise, and will cause one nation to rise up after another. In order to obey the commands of Allah, follow that individual who will fulfill these promises and will uphold the promises made by God. Do not change your conditions, lest Allah the Almighty replace you with another nation. I.e., if you change your conditions, abandon the faith, and not act on the commandments, then Allah the Almighty will replace you with another nation. Hazrat Umar then stated, the only thing I fear that can destroy the Muslim Ummah is you yourselves. I am not worried whether the enemy can destroy the Muslim Ummah. In fact, I only fear that the Muslims themselves will be responsible for annihilating the Ummah. We can see that this statement was very true. Muslims are striking the necks of fellow Muslims and intent on killing each other. Muslim countries are attacking one another. It is claimed that this is jihad, whereas Muslims are killing each other. The conquest of Istakhr. Istakhr was the capital of Fars and was an ancient holy center for the Sassanians. The ancient fire temple was situated here and was under the direct control of the Persian king. Hazrat Usman bin Abil As decided to march towards Istakhr, and a battle ensued between the people of Istakhr at a place called Jor. A fierce battle took place with the people of Jor, after which Allah the Almighty granted them victory, and the Muslims were able to conquer Istakhr as well. Many people were killed and many people fled. Hazrat Usman bin Abul As invited the non-Muslims to pay the jizya and to live as a subject of the Muslim government. He sent them letters and kept in correspondence with them. Eventually, their leader, Hurmuz, accepted the offer and agreed to pay the jizya. Those people who fled during the conquest of Istakhr or migrated all agreed to pay the jizya and returned home to a peaceful resolution. After the enemy had been defeated, Hazrat Usman bin Abil As gathered the spoils of war and set aside 1/5 and sent it to Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. The remaining spoils was kept to distribute between the Muslims. He prevented the Muslim army from any kind of looting, and there was an order to return anything that was snatched away. The commander-in-chief ordered to return anything that had been taken away from the people. Then Hazrat Usman bin Abil As gathered everyone and said, "We will continue to scale new heights and be safeguarded from all trials, as long as we do not carry out theft or be dishonest. If we are dishonest in the spoils of war, then these immoral acts will become prevalent among us. These evil deeds will bring everyone down. I.e., if they become dishonest and start stealing things, then this will be their downfall. Nowadays, these habits have become prevalent among Muslims. They are stealing from each other. Wherever the opportunity arises, they steal. They are dishonest. And it is these immoral traits that is leading to their ruin. They are vilified everywhere in the world. On the day of the conquest, Hazrat Usman bin Abilas said, "When Allah the Almighty wishes good for a people, He saves them from every form of evil and immorality. He instills within them the qualities of honesty and truthfulness. Therefore, safeguard the trusts handed over to you, because the aspect of faith that is the first to vanish is honoring of a trust. And when you lose your integrity and honesty in this regard, then with the passing of each day, you will lose another virtue, i.e., when one overlooks honesty, one will stop upholding other virtues as well. In the latter years of Hazrat Umar Farooq's Khilafat and towards the beginning of Hazrat Usman's Khilafat, Sharik instigated a revolt and incited the Persians. As a result of this, they broke their treaty. Hazrat Usman bin Abilas was sent again to crush the revolt. Similarly, reinforcements were sent with Hazrat Abdullah bin Ma'mar and Shibl bin Ma'bad Bajli. They encountered the enemy at Fars, and a fierce encounter took place in which Sharik and his son were killed. Many other people also died. Sharik was killed by Hakam bin Abilas, the brother of Hazrat Usman bin Abilas. According to one narration, Hazrat Ala bin Hadrami conquered Istakhr for the first time in 17 Hijri. After agreeing to a treaty, the residents broke off the agreement and a rebellion followed suit. In order to put down this rebellion, Hazrat Usman bin Abilas sent his brother and son. They succeeded in crushing the rebellion. They killed Sharik, the governor of Istakhr. Fasa and Dara Bajird. In 23 Hijri, Hazrat Umar commissioned Hazrat Sariya bin Zanim towards Fasa and Dara Bajird. Fasa was an ancient city in Fars, located at a distance of 216 miles from Shiraz. Dara Bajird was a vast region in Fars, comprising of many cities including Fasa. There is a narration documented in Dalail al-Nabuwa in which Hazrat Ibn Umar narrates that Hazrat Umar once sent an army under the leadership of Hazrat Sariya. One day, whilst delivering a sermon, Hazrat Umar suddenly said aloud, "Ya Sariya al-Jabala," that is, "O Sariya, go toward the mountain." Tariq at-Tabari also mentions that Hazrat Umar sent Hazrat Sariya bin Zunaym to Fasa and Dara Bajird. When he arrived there, he besieged the area. Upon this, they called their allies for reinforcements, who gathered in the desert to combat the Muslim army. When their numbers increased, they advanced to surround the Muslims from every direction. It was a Friday, and Hazrat Umar was delivering the Friday sermon when he said, "Ya Sariya bin Zunaym, al-Jabal, al-Jabal," that is, "O Sariya bin Zunaym, the mountain, the mountain." There was a mountain situated close to the Muslim encampment. Taking refuge on that mountain would contain the enemy attack to a single front. Thus they took to the mountain and fought the enemy, ultimately defeating them and collecting large amounts of spoils of war. Among the spoils of war was a small chest of precious gems, and the Muslim army, in unanimity, decided to present it as a gift to Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Sariya sent a messenger with news of the victory along with a chest of gems to Hazrat Umar. When the messenger reached Medina, Hazrat Umar was serving food to the people and was holding a staff which he would use to direct the camels. When the messenger approached to speak to Hazrat Umar sat him down for food, and so he sat down to eat. When he finished eating, Hazrat Umar was departing. He got up to follow Hazrat Umar, and when Hazrat Umar noticed that he was being followed, he thought that the man was still hungry. And so, upon reaching his home, he invited the man in and instructed the bread maker to arrange for food. which consisted of bread, olives, and salt. Hazrat Umar told the man to eat, and after completing his meal, he addressed Hazrat Umar saying, "O leader of the faithful, I am a messenger from Sariya bin Zunaym." Hazrat Umar replied, "Welcome." He then moved closer to Hazrat Umar to the extent that his knees touched against the knees of Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Umar asked about the Muslims and about Sariya, and the messenger informed him. He then informed him about the chest of jewels. Hazrat Umar looked towards him and in a loud voice proclaimed, "No, this has no honor in this. Return to the army and distribute these among them," i.e. the gems that have been sent for him should be distributed amongst the army. The messenger submitted, "O leader of the faithful, my camel has become weak, and I also took out a loan in hope of being rewarded. So please grant me enough that I may be compensated for what I have incurred." He insisted until Hazrat Umar granted him a camel from the camels given in alms, and included his camel instead. The messenger was rebuked and returned to Basra, where he implemented the instructions of Hazrat Umar. It is also mentioned in a narration that when the messenger brought news of victory to Medina, many people inquired about the battle and about Sariya, and also asked if they had heard a voice on the day of the battlefield. He replied, "Yes, we heard, Ya Sariya al-Jabal, that is, O Sariya, retreat to the mountain." He continued, "We were close to being destroyed, but when we took the mountain as refuge, Allah the Almighty granted us victory." Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu narrates this incident in the following way. There is an incident of Hazrat Umar recorded from during the time of his Khilafat. He was once standing at the pulpit and delivering a sermon when he spontaneously said, "Ya Sariyatu al-Jabal," that is, "O Sariya, climb the mountain. O Sariya, climb the mountain." Because these words were unrelated to the subject matter, the people inquired as to what was said. Hazrat Umar explained that he was shown the place where Sariya was sent as the general of the Muslim army, and that the enemy was about to launch an attack from the rear, which would most likely have destroyed the Muslim army. He also saw a mountain in the near vicinity, which could save them from such an attack, and so he called to them to climb the mountain. Only a few days had passed, and Sariya also reported the exact same occurrence, also writing that the voice that warned them of the danger and guided them to climb the mountain to evade the enemy attack was very similar to the voice of Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu. As a Muslim radhiyallahu continues, from this incident we learn that Hazrat Umar's tongue was not in his control at the time, but was rather in the control of the all-powerful God, for whom distances and separation is no matter. The Prophet Messiah ﷺ writes in this regard, "I also declare that the assertion made against the noble companions that they received no revelation is baseless and false, simply because many revelations and extraordinary experiences of the noble companions are proven from narrations of authentic hadith." When Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu warned the army of Sariya of impending danger through the all-knowing God, which Baiki has quoted from Ibn Umar, if this is not an example of revelation, then what is it? They heard his voice saying, "Ya Sariya al-Jabal," a voice that originating from Medina and through unseen powers was heard by Sariya and his army a great journey's distance away, is nothing short of an extraordinary miracle. Then comes the mention of the conquest of Karman, which took place in 23 Hijri. Karman was conquered by Hazrat Suhail bin Adi. It is also recorded that it was conquered by Abdullah bin Budail. Nusair bin Amr Bijali was appointed commander of the vanguard of Hazrat Suhail's army. The people of Karman gathered to battle against them, and they began to wage war near their homeland. Ultimately, Allah the Almighty caused them to disperse, and the Muslims took control of their routes. Nusair killed many of their prominent leaders. Similarly, Hazrat Suhail bin Adi led a battalion of villagers and took control of the route until Jiraf. Hazrat Abdullah took to Sheer and, as expected, found many camels, goats and sheep. He began to set prices for animals, and because they were larger than typical Arabian breeds, they began to differ about the pricing. To solve this conflict, a letter was written to Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. Hazrat Umar replied, "An Arabian camel is priced according to its meat, and these camels are similar. If these camels are greater in your opinion, then the price may be increased." The animals were being priced according to the wealth that was acquired. In a narration, it is mentioned that during the Khilafat of Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Abdullah bin Budail bin Warqa Khuzai conquered Kerman. Following that, he went on to conquer Tabsain. He went to Hazrat Umar and asked if the two conquered lands could be rewarded to him as his property. When Hazrat Umar decided to grant him the two conquered lands, someone submitted that these two lands are very vast districts and are considered gateways to Khurasan. Upon hearing this, Hazrat Umar changed his decision of giving this land as a reward. The conquest of Sijistan also took place in 23 Hijri. Sijistan is more vast than Khurasan, and its borders are spread far and wide. This region was situated between the Sindh province and the Balkh river. The terrain of this border was very challenging, and the area had a large population. Sijistan is also called Sistan by the Iranians. The famous Iranian commander Rustam also lived here. It was situated north of Kerman, and its central headquarters were in Zaranj. In ancient times, this was a very vast region and was very important during the time of Hazrat Muawiyah. The people of this region were always at war against Kangar, Turks, and other nations. Asim bin Amr aimed to conquer Sijistan, and Abdullah bin Umair also joined him with his army. The battle against the people of Sistan took place in a nearby area, and the Muslims attained victory while the enemy fled. The Muslims gave chase until they were able to surround the fleeing army in Zaranj. On their way, the Muslims conquered different areas where possible. Eventually, the people of Sistan became willing to reconcile and negotiate about Zaranj and other conquered territories, and agreed to a treaty with the Muslims. In their treaty, they stipulated the condition that their forests would be considered as protected pastures. For this reason, Muslims were always wary of the forests when passing by, lest they cause damage and break their covenant. This is the extent to which Muslims would be considerate. Thus, the people of Sistan agreed to pay taxes, and the Muslims accepted the responsibility of their safety and security. The conquest of Mukran also took place in 23 Hijri at the hands of Hakam bin Amr. Today it is called Mukran, whereas in history it was referred to as Mukran. It was conquered by Shihab bin Mukharik, Suhail bin Adi, and Abdullah bin Abdullah, who joined them with their armies. It was conquered by Hakam bin Amr, who was joined by the armies of Shihab bin Mukharik, Suhail bin Adi, and Abdullah bin Abdullah. The Muslims united to fight against the king of Sindh and were victorious. Hakam bin Amr sent news of this victory and the spoils of war with Sahar Abdi, and sought guidance about the elephants that were seized in the spoils. When glad tidings of the victory reached Hazrat Umar, he inquired about the land of Makran. He replied, "O leader of the faithful, its soft plains are as hard as the mountains. There is a severe shortage of water. The fruits are inedible, and the enemy there is very courageous, and the evil there greatly outweighs the good. Whatever abundance there seems to be very little, and what is scarce goes to waste. Furthermore, what is beyond that is even worse." Having heard his manner of speaking, Hazrat Umar asked, "Are you reciting couplets of a poem or really describing the situation there?" He answered, I am conveying to you the true state of affairs there. Hazrat Umar then said, if you speak the truth, by God, my army shall not attack there.
बखुदा मेरा लश्कर वहाँ हमला नहीं करेगा। चुनांचे आपने हकम बिन अमर और हज़रत सुहैल को ये हुक्म तारीफ़ फरमाया और ये हुक्म तारीफ़ फरमा कर
Therefore, he
रवाना
wrote
किया
to Hakam bin Amr
दोनों के लश्करों में से
and Hazrat Suhail stating,
से आगे पेशकदमी न करे
neither army is to advance beyond Mukran
महदूद रहे
and to remain in the area before the river.
कि हाथियों को इस्लामी सरज़मीन पर ही फरोख्त कर दिया
He
जाए
also instructed that the elephants be sold in the Muslim lands
को मुसलमान
and that the wealth be distributed among the Muslim army. The details of this battle that have been mentioned have been taken from Tabari. In relation to this battle, Allama Shibli has written a note stating that the final victory in the time of Hazrat Umar was in Mukran. However, this is the narration of Tabari.
मुर्रख बलादरी की रवायत है
The historian Bladari narrates that the armies reached the lowland areas of Dibal and Sana.
आई
If this is correct, then during the era of Hazrat Umar, Islam had reached Sindh and India.
नीज़ वो
He writes in the footnote
में लिखते हैं
that half of Mukran is now
आजकल का
Balochistan.
निस्फ़ हिस्सा बलूचिस्तान कहलाता है
Even though Bladari states that the victories in the time of Hazrat Umar reached the city Dibal in Sindh.
दीबल तक लिखता है
However, Tabari has stated that Mukran was the final victory. In any case, these were the details of the era of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, which shall continue in future.
वो भी आइंदा भी बयान होगा
After the Friday prayers,
जुमे के बाद मैं
I will launch a Turkish internet radio
इंटरनेट रेडियो का इफ्तिताह करूंगा इस
Called
रेडियो चैनल का नाम
Islam Ahmadiyya in CC,
यानी सदाए
meaning the voice of Islam Ahmadiyya.
जो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अब
By the grace of Allah, it is ready to be broadcast 24 hours a day.
ये रेडियो दुनिया भर में
This radio can be accessed via a link on a tablet, smartphone, and laptop, etc.
पर एक लिंक के जरिए सुना जा
A 4-hour broadcast will be repeated 6 times in the day.
पैकेज को 6 दफा दिन में
This package will include tilawat for 1 hour with Turkish translation,
की तर्जुमा
hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, sayings of the Prophet ﷺ,
इमाम हज़रत वसीम
Turkish translations of my Friday sermons.
तुर्की ज़बान में मेरे खुतबात का तर्जुमा
In addition to this, there will be a question and answer session as well.
भी एक नशर हुआ करेगी
More than 20 countries around the world will be able to benefit from this for the purposes of tabligh and tarbiyat.
के लिए इस रेडियो से इंशाल्लाह इस्तिफादा होगा मैं ये 20
More than 20 countries will derive benefit in terms of propagating the faith and also for moral training.
मैदान में भी और तरबियती
For example, Azerbaijan, Georgia,
अज़रबैजान है जॉर्जिया है
where Turkish is
की
spoken.
ज़बान बोलने वाले मुल्क
There are many former Soviet states where Turkish is spoken. Similarly,
ज़बान बोली जाती है
within Turkey, as well as those countries of Europe where Turkish people have settled, can benefit from the broadcast.
से फ़ायदा उठा सकते
The preparations of this radio were made by the Tabligh department of Germany.
शोबा तबलीग जर्मनी को मिली है
May Allah the Almighty reward them and bless this initiative in every regard.
बरकत फरमाए इसको भी मैं
I will launch this radio channel after the Friday prayers.
लॉन्च करूंगा
There are some funeral prayers in absentia which I shall lead after the Friday prayer.
को पढ़ूंगा जुमे के बाद अदा करूंगा
I will also mention
ये भी बता दूं कि
that the body of our dear and beloved Taleh
का
has not yet arrived
जनाजा भी पहुंचा
and it
नहीं
may take a few days.
शायद चंद दिन लग जाएं
When it arrives, I shall lead the funeral prayer, God willing, and also speak about him.
और वहाँ फिर उसका जिक्र भी इंशाल्लाह होगा जो जनाजा गायब
The first of the funeral prayers in absentia that I shall lead today is of respected Muhammad al-Mukhtar Qabla Sahib of Morocco.
जो मराकश के थे
He passed away at the age of 73.
उम्र में इनकी वफात हुई
Verily to Allah we belong and to Him shall we return.
ना लहरा जाऊं
He pledged his allegiance in 2009. He was a very sincere Ahmadi.
सहमति थे
After taking the oath of allegiance, he spent all his time in the service to the community and in preaching Ahmadiyya.
में हर वक्त लगे रहते
He
थे
played a vital role in correcting the erroneous notions within society.
दोस्ती में उन्होंने बहुत किरदार अदा किया है इनके इलाका मगरबी
The Sadr of West Morocco, where he resided, writes,
लिखते हैं
he was a retired soldier. He was well educated. Aside from Arabic, he was fluent in French and Spanish.
स्पेनिश ज़बानों के माहिर थे
Having read Hamamat al-Bushra, he took the oath of allegiance right away.
फिर हज़रत मसीह
Then he
इस्लाम
would
की किताबों का बड़े
read
शौक
the books of the Prophet ﷺ with great zeal and love, at least
को
twice.
बड़े शौक और मोहब्बत से 2 बार पढ़ा
He then studied Tafsir Kabir, made copies of it and would distribute them among the Ahmadis. When the community was established in our area, he dedicated his life for the service of the community and went on to visit many local Jamaats. He was at the forefront of making financial sacrifices. He never said that he was too busy or unable to render any service. He possessed great determination, which is seldom seen even among the youth. His obedience to Khilafat was complete and immediate. He had a great zeal for preaching and would preach in the car, train, and in markets to the young and old alike. He conveyed the message to all his family members. He was regular in offering the Tahajjud prayers. He would fast every Monday and Thursday. And he would also recite the Jubilee prayers I spoke of. Every day he would recite 5 to 10 ahzab of the Holy Quran. He would memorize and repeat portions of the Holy Quran as he walked. At times, he would be so engulfed in the recitation of the Holy Quran that whilst walking that he would become unaware of his surroundings. He was filled with the love of the Holy Quran. Some have even said that even as he slept at night, they could hear him reading and reciting verses of the Holy Quran. He served for 9 years as a deputy Sadr of West Morocco and also served as a Southern Saula and finance secretary. He was a Musi, and his wife too is very sincere and a Musia. The next funeral was Mahmood Ahmad Sahib, former worker in Masjid Aqsa and Masjid Mubarak in Qadian, who passed away at the age of 74 in the last few days. To Allah we belong and to Him shall we return. He was the son of Makhdoom Hussain Sahib of Bilagam, who migrated from the Karnataka province to Qadian. He continued serving as a worker in Masjid Aqsa and Masjid Mubarak for 28 years. He was a Musi. He was regular in fasting and in offering prayers, as well as the Tahajjud prayers, and he would always supplicate. He had a special affinity with the mosque. He is survived by his wife, 2 sons, and a daughter. The next funeral is of Sauda Sahiba, wife of Abdul Rahman Sahib of Kerala, India. She passed away on 22nd of July at the age of 76. Verily to Allah we belong, to Him shall we return. She was the mother of Shamsuddin Sahib Malabari, missionary in charge of Kababir. Shamsuddin Sahib says, "My mother was the daughter of the late B.T. Muhammad Sahib, who was the first Ahmadi in the Palkat district and the surrounding areas, and he took the oath of allegiance in 1937. For a long period of time, he had to endure severe persecution from the opposition. During this boycott, my grandmother and her elder daughter passed away. This is when his mother was 1.5 years old. After her demise, the opponents would not allow my grandmother to be buried, and so they had to be buried in a cemetery in a city 40 kilometers away. My grandfather migrated with his young daughter, and so my mother went through all kinds of trials from her very childhood. She was regular in offering her prayers and was a Musia. She was brimming from the inside with compassion for mankind. She had a habit of always praying for those who had troubles and to help them if they were in her presence. She is survived by her husband, 4 sons and 2 daughters. Some of her grandchildren are life devotees, and 1 son is a missionary. They were abroad and so were not able to attend the funeral. May Allah the Almighty elevate her in rank." The next funeral is of Sayyidah Majid Sahiba, wife of Sheikh Abdul Majid Sahib of Faisalabad, who passed away in the last few days at the age of 86. To Allah we belong and to Him shall we return. Her son, Sheikh Waeed Sahib, says that Ahmadiyyat was introduced to the family through his paternal grandfather, Hazrat Barakat Ali Qadiani Sahib. He has the honor of having both his paternal grandparents as companions of the Promised Messiah alayhi salam. Sayyidah Majid Sahiba served the community for a long period of time. In the beginning, she served as a local Sadr and finance secretary. Then in 1982, when Lajna Imaillah Faisalabad was formed, she served as a secretary finance for 7 years. She worked with great effort as she regularly visited 82 local communities in order to oversee the work carried out by the office bearers in each one. She kept a close eye in the finance records, timely collection of chanda and its sending off. Her former Sadr, Bushra Sami Sahiba, says, once, as we were returning from an official visit, some robbers stopped our vehicle. She immediately took the purse which contained chanda money and placed it at her feet to safeguard it. Yet she showed no concern for jewelry being stolen. The rest of the jewelry was taken away, but the alms money was saved, and she expressed joy over this. A few months prior to her demise, she presented all of her jewelry towards Jamaat initiatives. She read the writings of the Prophet ﷺ many times over. She possessed many wonderful qualities. She had great love for God Almighty. She was prayerful. She had trust in Allah. She had wonderful love and affection for Khilafat. She always advised her children, daughter-in-laws, grandchildren to remain attached to Khilafat, to pray for the Khalifa of the time, and to listen to his sermons. She was a Musiya. She is survived by her husband, 8 sons, and numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren. May Allah the Almighty grant forgiveness and mercy to all the deceased and elevate them in their rank. As I mentioned, I shall lead their funeral prayers in absentia after the Friday prayers.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu. ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر